The Bengals got it done, sort of. What it means for Trey Hendrickson in his 1-year deal. Plus, what is your confidence level? Yeah, you, Andrew, in the Cincinnati Bengals defense. We'll get to that and much, much more right now on Enter the Jungle. Hi again, everyone, and welcome into Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller. We are brought to you by FanDuel and Lake Spur Marketing, along with Garage Beer as well. Shout out to our sponsors, Andrew. We got a lengthy list here with football season almost here, and Trey Hendrickson. Well, he knew football season was almost here. That's why he and the Bengals agreed to a reworked deal, essentially ripping up his old contract, giving him a 1-year, $29 million contract, has incentives to get it to $30 million, $1 million of incentives this year, according to reports. It's been a long road, Andrew, a long road to get here. Trey Hendrickson, we've done probably 52 videos, 82 different rants, a bunch of topics on this show about it. Who won? Trey, the Bengals. Who won in this scenario?
Oh, man, who won? Okay, so first of all, James, I don't know that it's that simple, and I'm not copping out of this, I promise you. I just know that you're competitive. There's only winners and losers in your world.
Correct.
Both sides had to make a sacrifice here. You could say both sides won. I'm not going to say that, but you could. But if there's a scale here or a spectrum, where it would hang the winning medal or whatever, it would be like noticeably closer to the Bengals side than it would Trey's side. The Bengals clearly didn't want to pay Trey in 2026, or at least not be on the hook for paying him through guarantees, right? They avoided that. The Bengals delivered on the 4 things that their franchise quarterback publicly asked for earlier this year: paying Jamar, paying T, paying Mike Gesicki, paying Trey Hendrickson. The Bengals got their best defensive player on the field in time for week 1. The very fact that the Bengals agreed to this deal probably indicates that they got the deal that they wanted. Not to say that Trey Hendrickson got ripped off here, by the way. Like, he got $14 million he wasn't going to get previously on his original contract. But Trey wanted more money and wanted long-term security, right? He got one of those things. The Bengals wanted Trey to play in 2025, a Trey that's content, a Trey that's motivated to prove that he deserves a massive contract in 2026. They got it, all of it. So yes, I'm going to lean Bengals.
You can lean this way. You can lean that way. You can lean all over, left, right. Here we go. You're right. I'm a big fan of winners, losers, being competitive. I've written many articles post-game, BengalsTalk.com, winners and losers from the Bengals win or winners and losers from the Bengals loss. This is a losers and losers situation. Everybody loses. Everybody, except the 2025 existence. Trey wanted long-term security, wanted the reassurance that he's going to be in Cincinnati long-term and long-term guarantees. Didn't get it. And the Bengals, as good as it sounds and as frightened as they seem to be to pay Trey Hendrickson beyond this season, their biggest need is arguably defensive end, despite spending their 2023 and 2025 first-round picks on defensive end going into next offseason. Like, maybe that changes. Maybe Myles Murphy and Shamar Stewart are awesome, and I think the early returns on Shamar are really, really high, and we haven't seen Myles Murphy in a few weeks, so maybe he goes to Cleveland, has 3 sacks, and this is a moot point. But my goodness, when you forecast the future of the Cincinnati Bengals defensive line, you better be right with Shamar. You better get something out of Myles this year that matters, because if Shamar has an okay rookie season and Myles is just a guy, and Joseph Osai, even though he's in a contract year, doesn't break out and become a long-term piece, well, you don't have a lot of options outside of Trey Hendrickson. And they might not care about that, but I care because they didn't draft Trey Hendrickson. When's the last defensive end that they drafted, developed, and he became this Pro Bowler? Well, I'll tell you, Carlos Dunlap. I believe he was a Pro Bowler. I believe he was a Pro Bowler at some point. The point is it's been a while. And even for every Carl Lawson of the world There's been plenty of other guys that I'm just not going to take shots at guys that haven't worked out. And so there's risk involved here. And everyone knows how big of a draft guy I am. I'm already thinking like, man, we're going to be talking about offensive line and defensive line. Like that's it. Like that's where it's going to be. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to sneak in the occasional tight end if the right one is available. You know me, which that's what you should do. You draft players, not positions. But I hate it from that perspective because now you know that you're probably going to have a major need, a major void there, even if Shamar Stewart is awesome. He could be defensive rookie of the year. And we're still going to be talking about defensive end being a major, major need going into next offseason, assuming that Trey Hendrickson isn't franchise tagged or around long-term with an extension, which I think is the least unlikely scenario, the most unlikely scenario, excuse me. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Your take, your reaction, lose, both sides of losers. I can get a feel for either argument here. I will say that when they first announced it, two things were my thought. One, oh, that was an option. That was on the table. Like I couldn't even comprehend that leading up to it. I never would have thought of that. It's like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. And then it sunk in and it was sort of, I don't want to say bittersweet. Compare it to like, okay, you ever have a TV show you really enjoy, but you aren't sure like if the network or Netflix, HBO or FanDuel Sports Network is going to renew it. And in the case of Trey Hendrickson, we're not getting a 2 or 3 season commitment, right? We're not even getting like a movie after the finale, although maybe that's the franchise tag. I'm not going to go into that far into the analogy here, but what we're getting is a bigger budget, I guess. Subscription costs are probably going to go up. I'm also not going to get into that, but for the purpose of the analogy, like when you know it's going to be the final season, what's the best outcome you can hope for? You just want them to deliver on the finale, stick the landing. And look, I realize there's a better analogy. We could talk about this being cast members of the show, so on and so forth. But the Bengals are making the decision that they need Trey this year and no more. All in. Get to the postseason, compete for the championship, and that's fine. But to your point, what is the long-term plan? You can say you aren't interested in Trey Hendrickson in 2026 and beyond, but like, what are you interested in? Addressing your defense next offseason? Free agency? There isn't much in recent history to suggest that they'll suddenly be aggressive there. Are you finding your answer in the 2026 draft? Again, history tells us something with that. Whether it's drafting, developing, it hasn't always panned out. So yeah, it's not that I don't it's not that I hate the deal. I hate the lack of proactiveness that took place, everything else around it, all the little things and big things that they didn't do that made it seem as though they were setting it up for this.
Did you like the ending of Game of Thrones? I'll continue your analogy when Jon Snow takes over the Night's Watch.
Are you going to spoil this?
A lot of people, it was 10 years ago, a lot of people were disappointed in that ending. Right? Yeah. Why were they disappointed? Because it just felt a little hollow. A lot of people are going to be disappointed in the best free agent signing in Bengals history, ending his career elsewhere. And that's what this week means. That's barring something really unforeseen. Trey Hendrickson is going to play elsewhere. Maybe that works. Maybe he has 25 sacks this year and is threatening the NFL all-time record. And the Bengals are awesome and they win a Super Bowl and then they can tag and trade him. Maybe they get value for him. But that's probably not going to happen. And with these actions, I think it makes it perfectly clear that they don't really plan on paying him in 2026 and beyond. Maybe they have a change of heart. Maybe it's so bad in that defensive line room that they have to have a change of heart. That's not an ideal scenario either. Nope. So it just, that's what's tough. We're about to talk about the defense and the overall outlook. And it's like, all right, well, where's the stars? Trey Hendrickson is your lone star. So there better be another star that shows up and shows out, because whatever analogy you want to make, the great shows, teams, whatever, they have multiple stars. In this defense, they do not have any stars right now. And we'll see if the stars come out in 2025 for the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to discuss this Bengals defense coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien, and we've talked a lot about Trey Hendrickson so far in today's show. Now it's time to get to the Bengals defense. This segment brought to you by Lakespur Marketing. Lakespur Marketing prides themselves on delivering positive and powerful results. They are a full transparency marketing agency that will be with you every step of the way. Visit lakespurmarketing.com today. And Andrew, let's dive into this defense. Trey Hendrickson is back in the fold. I mentioned Myles Murphy, who's been nicked up, but he's going to be good to go for the opener. At least all indications are that that's going to be the case. Shamar Stewart has had an impressive start to his rookie career, and I get it. He hasn't played in an NFL game yet, but I've noticed him in practice, virtually every practice since he signed his rookie deal. You're noticing 97 around the ball, being disruptive, making a play. Where is your confidence level? Let's zoom out a little bit in this defense, despite or because of what we've seen in the preseason training camp and now with Trey Hendrickson back in the fold.
I mean, I'd like to think that this defense will look better than what we saw in the preseason. I think I mentioned it before. I would probably bet money that they would. The big question is when, and I'm going to say that probably every single season until we don't have to, and I hope it's this one. When? Is it going to be in September? I don't expect it necessarily week 1, but maybe we see some signs of things progressing to where they're improving. I don't want to see it in November, and I certainly don't want to see it in December. So when? And my confidence level, I don't need a whole lot. We've said it before. I don't ask for much. Can you just give me a few big plays, maybe a couple critical stops? You could say they did that last season, but nothing aligned well. There wasn't the consistency that we needed from them. Give me some fraction of a step up, an improvement there, and I'm feeling great. Do I think they can do that? Yeah, I feel pretty confident that that could happen. Is it going to be enough? Assuming the offense does what we know that they're capable of doing and what they did last season, I think we should be okay. But it's got to keep improving. People got to step up. Like, these players have to step up on the defense.
They do. And the pressure's on now because you're not going to be able to say, oh, well, we didn't scheme it up, or, oh, we didn't have this guy, or, oh, well, like Trey Hendrickson gets 2 weeks. And that's why that is the major positive out of this is Trey gets it done 13 days before the start of the regular season. He's going to practice this week, practice next week, going into that Cleveland game. The Bengals defense is going to have their guys. They're relatively healthy, cornerback wise as well. And so there's a lot of question marks, but what they've done this offseason is they brought back a lot of familiar faces, cornerback room, safety room, linebackers. They completely revamped that room behind Logan Wilson. And then defensive line wise, they said, as long as we get Trey done and you bring in a guy like Shamar Stewart, who can play multiple spots across that defensive line, and TJ Slayton, a true nose tackle in the middle, we are going to be much, much better. We'll see. Now the pressure's on. Where's my confidence level? I don't have confidence in it because I haven't seen it. So why would I have confidence in it? I will say this. They've passed the eye test in practice. But that's practice. That's going up against the same offense day in and day out and day in and day out and learning tendencies and knowing what plays are coming at times and different things like that. So we will see. I do think they're more talented than the national perception of them is, because I think a lot of people nationally, and I just mean across the country, average football fans, analysts, whoever, think they're like the 30th best defense in the league. And I don't think they're that. I think they're much better than that. But where they land, it's really hard for me to say because I could see them being 18th. I could see them being 15th. I could see them being super opportunistic. I also could see them giving up huge chunk plays like they did last year, and the pressure's on to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I understand what you mean about the media sort of being a little more low on them than they should be. It reminds me a lot of thinking of the team as a whole, but particularly the offense, which we know played great last season. But people going out there and saying, well, this Bengals team, I mean, they haven't been to the playoffs. Joe Burrow hasn't gotten this team to the playoffs in the last 2 years. They constantly say that over and over. He was hurt 2 years ago. They don't ever like add that little asterisk to it. It's just, I don't know, a talking point they throw in there. And I expect this defense to get that same treatment. I know they already have, but even more so as we go into the season, we hear the narratives on the broadcasts and the write-ups. It's going to be a thing until they prove otherwise. And to be fair, they kind of deserve it to a degree. They do. And we keep saying it over and over. Al Golden, the task that he has right now, essentially getting back the team more or less. And I feel like we're undermining like the impact of like a TJ Slayton that you mentioned there, for example, but more or less they maintained from a personnel standpoint their defense, and Al Golden is being handed that and going, what can you do with this? That's a tall order. That's one that I wouldn't want, but I don't know. It's bold.
And he did want it because he was considered the best defensive coordinator in college football last year. What won the award, everything, was a big reason why Notre Dame was playing for a national championship. And Notre Dame, as great as that Ohio State team was and that roster was, they're like 2 plays away from having a real chance to go tie it up. I mean, that game was wild. People forget how close it kind of got there toward the end. And Al Golden's a big reason why. And so will that translate? I don't know. I will say this. We're doing our show on Tuesday, so Final Cuts just happened. Don't be afraid to add, Bengals. Defensive line, don't be afraid to add. Safety, don't be afraid to add. Obviously, we're going to have you covered on the YouTube channel, Cincinnati Bengals Talk. That segment brought to you by Lake Spur Marketing. Up next, let's look at this division. The Bengals open up in Cleveland. We know how tough the AFC North can be. Where will the Bengals slot in the division? We'll get to that coming up next.
One moment, I'm going to get some water here. If you want to vamp with the chat for 10 seconds.
Yeah, I got that. Got that. Aaron, you're the man. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody. We're not able to interact as much today, but we want to try these subscriber recordings and we'll start to interact more. This week is just kind of a unique week for us. So just so you know.
It's been a crazy last several hours. Some things happen with this team.
Yeah, that's a big question, Cliff. We'll start to find out in Cleveland. All right, let's dive into this AFC North forecast. You ready?
Yeah.
Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox-Miller. I'm James Rapien, and it is time to dive in to the AFC North and an AFC North forecast. Where do the Bengals rank? Where should they rank? What are the latest odds? We're going to dive into those courtesy of FanDuel right now. With FanDuel, they're getting you ready for NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. So throw $5 on the Cincinnati Reds to actually score a run, or maybe you want to get in on those Bengals futures, which we're going to talk about shortly. But you can build parlays, player props, and so much more. And like I said, when that first $5 bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com/BigPlay to download the FanDuel app today and get started. That's FanDuel.com/BigPlay. 21 plus and present in Ohio. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawal bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And Andrew, let's dive into these FanDuel odds. Right now, the Baltimore Ravens, they are the favorite in the AFC North. It shouldn't be a surprise there. They're minus 155 favorites according to FanDuel. They're trying to become the first team. It's so funny, too, because the Bengals were in this position a few years ago, and I wrote it a ton. The Ravens are trying to become the first team in AFC North history to win the division 3 straight years. The Bengals did it 21 and 22, and then the Ravens have done it 23-24. Do you think it happens? Do you think that the Ravens get it done here in this division?
I think that I saw a Bengals team last year that was very close to beating them every time they faced them. Very close. And I think that this Bengals team is going to give them a very difficult time to make it happen. Do I think it could happen? Of course, I think it could. Looking at these odds, though, I kind of like them. I'm not going to lie. Like, Bengals plus 250 to win the division. It's second place if you're going to rank it that way. And then the Browns at plus 3,300. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns are... Look, that's what's tough is because I don't think the Browns are going to win the division, and I don't really see a path to it. I also think week 1 is tough. And we'll get more into week 1 next week. But, like, there hasn't been a moment where I looked at that Cleveland game and I'm like, oh, well, that'll be a breeze. Like, there's so many reasons why it won't be a breeze, but 95 reasons are Myles Garrett. And that dude is going to line up wherever, whenever, however, to get whoever. And obviously most of the time that's going to be Joe Burrow, but maybe it's Chase Brown or Jamar Chase or whoever else is in the backfield. Look, I think there are some people that are in on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, it's very much a boomer bust type of season for them. They're going all in. It's very 2010 Bengals-ish, where they're going all in and maybe they catch lightning in a bottle or maybe it blows up in their face. I get the logic. And with Mike Tomlin, how stabilizing he is, I understand it. But to me, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, sometimes it's that simple. And so I think these two teams are the clear-cut 1 and 2 in this division. I think the Ravens have a better roster than the Bengals, top to bottom. But the Bengals' best players are better than the Ravens' best players. Like Joe and Jamar, the Ravens fans are going to come at me. But if Joe,
it's okay.
even
it's
if
subscriber
Joe,
only, James.
Even if Joe isn't Jamar, no, I just mean on FanDuel Sports Network.
I'm
Even
joking.
if Joe isn't Lamar, Jamar is better than any other Raven. You know what I'm saying? So like, we know it's close between Joe and Lamar, and then Jamar Chase is head and shoulders above the rest. And so I think the top end of the roster, and that's not getting into Trey and T and starting to break it down that way, but the top end of the roster, the Bengals have the edge there. But I do think the Ravens are deeper. They're obviously really well coached. The Bengals have had some turnover on their coaching staff. We'll see if that works out well. If Al Golden is the next Mike McDonald and can scheme up and just completely be the fly in the ointment for the Ravens offense, the way Mike McDonald was for Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense, well then, heck yeah, then you're having that conversation. But I get why the Ravens have the edge. They should be the favorite, and it's up to the Bengals to dethrone them in the North. Jon Snow reference.
Oh God, I've got you. The one show you've watched in the last 5 years. Now you're talking.
That's two. Did I 5? Yeah, it was close to 5 years ago. I guess 4 years.
I think it was less than that. Yeah. I'm actually surprised. Going back to that list, I'm just thinking about it. I'm surprised that odds makers are putting the Bengals above the Steelers. I'm not that I think they should. I just feel like usually that's not what happens.
And they better. It's Joe Burrow.
I agree. But
the Steelers are the favorites in the division if Joe Burrow is there instead of Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
I'm just, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think I would be right, because that defensive front for Pittsburgh and then Joe Burrow at quarterback, good luck, right? Right. That's not a picture that I wanted to paint for Bengals fans, but I did it. Ha! Up next, well, it was cut down week at Paycor Stadium. The biggest surprise of cut down day. Andrew will reveal his, I'll reveal mine next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien. Andrew, the Bengals made their final cuts. They trimmed their roster to 53. What surprised you most about the Bengals 53-man roster?
I don't feel like there were any huge surprises on this. What I thought was interesting, and it's probably because it doesn't get covered very much, is long snapper. Like, I just kind of thought Cal Automitis would continue on for, if nothing else, for consistency. Like, wouldn't you want some continuity for Evan McPherson? Unless he's completely screwing things up out on the field. I didn't see that in preseason. I don't know if it was happening at camp, but it wasn't heavily reported if it was, or who would have seen it. I don't know. But that one didn't shock me, but I'm thinking, why are we flipping things around? Why are we experimenting here? It feels as though we're doing that. I don't know. You tell me.
I think when I was making fun of Evan last year, and people were very critical of Evan, and he was bad, 16 of 22, was missing field goals he should have made. Obviously, you have the Ryan Rico botched hold. I think the Bengals reviewed that and said, all right, snapping has been an issue here. It's too inconsistent. And they believed in Evan's talent, but they also thought, all right, we got to get better here. Maybe it's Cal getting better and improving, but we're going to go look at a guy in the draft, and they're not going to draft a long snapper, but obviously they signed one. And yeah, I think William Wagner from day one showed that he could play at a high level and probably has more upside than Cal and is steady, and they need steady, but they also need some upside, and Cal was solid, but I'm not shocked that William Wagner got the job. But you're right. We couldn't really cover it much during training camp, because how do you cover a long snapper battle? I thought we would be able to, but it was hard to see, because you don't see them work a lot. Usually they're not working until the end of practice, because they're on another field and you're paying attention to Joe Burrow or the defense, all of those things. My surprise, and it's really quick here, it's something that I think everyone would have laughed at as camp started, if I would have told you Mitch Tinsley made the team, you would have said, who? What position does he play? And you're not alone. You're not wrong. I would have too. But Mitch Tinsley, he went from who to that guy looks like young Marvin Jones in that 82 in stripes and roster lock, and a guy that I think is going to matter for the Bengals this year. So congrats to Mitch Tinsley. We're going to have you covered. Make sure you check us out on the YouTube channel, Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Support our sponsors, Garage Beer, Lakespur Marketing, and FanDuel. And until next time, for Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Another Jungle. Thanks, everyone. I know we just got you warmed up, and normally we stay for chat. Yeah. Normally we will, I promise. This is just one of those times where we gotta, at least I do. I don't know about you, but I think we gotta run. And next time we do a live, I promise we'll hang around, we'll chat, and we'll do a little Q&A. Maybe we'll even drink a few garage beers. We'll see.
I don't know. I'm not promising anything. We might do possibly a midday live, maybe in the near future. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. Ring that bell. Seriously. Because we're planning some new stuff. We're going to experiment some. This was a subscriber only
chat, but yeah.
Chat.
Yeah.
And so just to give you an idea, we're going to experiment a little bit here in the coming weeks and have some fun with it. So buckle up. The season is here. We can't wait. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for watching, like I said. And we'll talk to you, well, probably tomorrow, to be honest with you. We'll talk to you soon.